Morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the morning meeting. Melissa DeRosa is here. Larry O'Connor, you're here. And war or peace, that will be one of our main topics today. I've got sources who say the peace talks are a charade, and I've got sources who say the president's willing to go a long time to give peace a chance because the war is over, as he himself has said several times. We'll talk about that. We'll also talk about weird stuff going on in Congress. I don't know exactly what's going on, but we'll talk about that. We'll talk about the special election in Palm Beach, and we're going to talk about some liberal media bias that is so comical, it's almost hard to enunciate. Larry is live from CPAC. Larry, what does your CPAC agenda consist of? What are you doing down there?
I'm on a panel tomorrow about how
Yeah.
the new media is taking over
Oh, who's on the
from
panel
the
with you?
legacy corporate media. I wish I could tell you right now.
Okay.
I'm
Is it a
sorry.
secret or you don't know?
No, I just don't know off the top of my head. I just know that I'm supposed to show up, but I will
Oh,
have that
okay.
information for you tomorrow.
Okay. Do you know who's moderating the panel?
I I don't know. For all I know, I'm moderating the
Oh,
panel.
okay.
I'll
All
be
right.
honest. Some things at CPAC just sort of happen
Yeah.
on their own, and
Yeah.
yeah.
Doesn't
So
feel
Melissa,
like this is well structured.
Melissa, you ever been to CPAC?
No, I have
It's
not.
it's a shame you haven't. I've had some great professional experiences at
It
CPAC,
is
including
absolutely on my bucket list for sure.
don't
oh,
don't
I'm
don't
thinking
don't maybe next year we'll take everybody.
next year morning meeting live from
Don't
CPAC.
yeah don't forget my interview with Donald Trump at CPAC from a few years ago that has a million funny things in it, including his bringing up Jeffrey Epstein, and this was when was that 20? I don't even remember when was that 2015 maybe.
I think it was the year before. Yeah, I think
Yeah, I
that's
think
right.
it's 2015. The Bible verse is not from CPAC. I don't read the chat. I glance at it. Anyway, in a moment, we'll run through the day book and well, let's run through the day book now, actually. And then before too long, we're going to get to your questions, comments, concerns, recipes, product recommendations, whatever you want to use the time for. If you're here on the two-way platform, please raise your hand if you'd like to be in on the conversation. And if not, and you're watching on YouTube or X, just don't put smack in the chat. It's all I ask. I ask so little of you. Peace, love, and understanding, I ask of you. Extending the presumption of grace to all, I ask of you. No smack in the chat, I ask of you. Turns out I ask a lot of you, but please do those things. The president's at the White House today, executive time at 8 a.m. And again, as we've told you before, that's code for watching the morning meeting. So good morning, Mr. President. Good to see you. Executive time at 8, 11 o'clock. The First Lady makes the president's schedule again today. Another turn in the East Room at the Fostering the Future Global Coalition Summit. 1 o'clock, the president gets his intelligence briefing, a little later than many of his predecessors received it. 3 o'clock, participates in a policy meeting. 4:30, policy meeting, all closed. So in theory, we don't see the president till tonight when he goes to Union Station. No longer rat infested, still with one of the finest Five Guys I've ever been to, where he attends the NRCC annual fundraising dinner, 7:20 p.m., makes remarks. That'll be if that occurs, and that's the only time he talks today, or whether or not, that'll be a humdinger. He's going to say quite a few interesting things at that event. Don't know what the vice president's doing today. Doug Burgum is speaking 9:40 a.m. to this conference in Dallas, in Houston, this energy conference. It's had a bunch of people from public and private sector. Sarah Week 2026. You guys ever heard of this event before this year? I don't remember this event.
No.
But I mean, it's been a who's who. Now, maybe it's gotten more attention because energy's much in the news, but man. All right, at this hour, House and Senate Republicans are having their separate meetings, caucus and conference meetings. Then the House Republicans will have a news conference at 10. Lots to ask them. House Democrats have theirs at 10:45. Ways and Means markup at 10. Senate Budget is holding a hearing on Social Security insolvency at 10. Senate then at noon comes back and starts dealing with the SAFE Act again, amidst no clear off-ramp conclusion compromise. House Democrat Homeland Security members are holding a forum with think tank researchers on Kristi Noem. Mark Warner, Josh Hawley, and some House members are at the leaders from the National Archives are meeting at some tech summit that Axios is having. Officials from Meta, Lockheed Martin, Adobe, and Anthropic. CPAC, where Larry is, kicks off today with a cavalcade of speakers, although Donald Trump is not appearing in person for the first time in quite some time. And Peter Navarro earlier today was interviewed on the stage at Politico's Economy Summit in Washington. All right. We don't know if there'll be peace talks, but there might be tomorrow in Islamabad. They might feature the vice president. They might feature the president's two special negotiators, Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff. The Iranians might not come because they don't think the deal on the table is any good. They also might not come, according to Axios, something I thought of, although not based on reporting. It'd be a good time to kill them.
Could be
If you wanted to kill them.
They're like, we've done this before. We know what happens here.
And we also know that the Iranians, quite rightly, have observed past his prologue with Donald Trump. And the last two times there were negotiations going on, they were basically just a pretext to attack. Larry, are we going to have? Let's forget whether there'll be a deal. Are we going to have peace talks this week in Islamabad tomorrow or Friday or not? What do you think?
I remain skeptical, sir.
Skeptical because the Iranians won't show.
Yeah.
Melissa?
Yeah, I agree. Not direct peace talks anyway.
Yeah. I mean, the Iranians are still asking for this cavalcade of things that they're never going to get, like control of the strait and a promise never to be attacked again, and reparations and no U.S. military bases in the Middle East. Do you guys think Iran has a functioning government where whoever's in charge of the government is making these decisions, or is it more ad hocery, Melissa?
I think that functioning government, define functioning government.
There's like a bunch of people who have the authority to
There's a group of people who are clearly making decisions and are clearly still in control of both the strait and continuing to fire into neighboring countries. And so there's a functioning something, in the traditional sense, certainly not, but whatever they're doing, they're continuing to stand their ground.
Larry, do you agree with Melissa's characterization?
Pretty much. I'm working on my levels here, by the way. Tell me when I'm loud or quiet because I've got a traveling mixer.
Sounds good to me.
I think they've clearly got enough functioning government to continue to keep an iron boot on the neck of the citizenry. We've seen public executions and arrests, and they're still trying to maintain control there. But I don't know how functioning the government is with regard to their national security and communications and command and control for their military. That remains to be seen. And so on a what we would term a federal level, I'm not sure what they've got, but certainly locally, they seem to continue to clamp down on the street.
But I'd also like to note that I'm not sure people would say what we have right now is a functioning government by traditional standards.
Don't go John Brennan on me this morning now.
John Brennan or Heather Cox Richardson.
Listen, man, I have to go to the airport in a few hours, so you're going to get a salty version of me.
I look forward to hearing about that. All right, let's look at some
ICE agents. I had a beautiful time yesterday. Let's
look at some headlines. 103 Reuters, Iran military says U.S. is negotiating with itself. Put back up. I'll read the subhead when you put that back up, or the pull quote, whatever it is. The United States is negotiating with itself, an Iran military spokesperson said, according to state media on Wednesday. There was a bunch of Iranian spokespeople, at least two, I guess, on media and elsewhere, and one did an interview with some Turkish publication saying very negative things about the prospect of negotiating. That doesn't mean they couldn't negotiate, but if you took it at face value, they ain't showing up. And here's 104, the Axios headline I referred to a little bit earlier. Iran suspects peace talk push is another trick. Quote, Iranian officials have told the countries trying to mediate peace talks with the U.S. that they are now being tricked. They've now been tricked twice by President Trump, and quote, we don't want to be fooled again, according to a source with direct knowledge of those discussions. The attacks continue. The president called for the halt until Friday, but as we know, that was just on energy facilities. And so Israel continues to attack Iran. I assume America continues to attack too, because Pete Hegseth said they are. Here's 105. Times of Israel says that Iran targets major Israeli power plant in missile attack. No injuries or damage. So Iran is not holding off on attacking energy facilities. And of course, as we all know, the president continues to move assets to the region. 106, the Washington Post. The 82nd Airborne Army paratroopers ordered to Middle East as U.S. weighs next move. The Pentagon Tuesday ordered a couple thousand paratroopers from the 82nd Airborne Division to deploy to the Middle East. Let's say there's a deal. Could the president say, this deal's good enough for me? If Bibi and MBS say no, we oppose this deal, can the president still sign a deal? And would the Iranians sign a deal if the Israelis haven't agreed to it, because the Israelis, if not bound by a deal, could do a lot of the things the Iranians don't want done, like have them continue to be bombed. Melissa.
Look, Trump can do whatever he wants. He can sign the deal and pull out, but that doesn't mean that this war is over, and that doesn't mean that there won't be continued economic global impacts and security impacts on the United States. So unless it's a deal that you can get the buy-in of the Saudis and also Israel, I don't know what it's worth.
Yeah,
Larry?
I tend to agree, although the president cannot sign it. He knows, and everyone around him knows, and the American people know that he cannot sign a deal after the last 4 weeks that we've been through without being able to credibly convey to the Americans and the rest of the world how we have completely degraded any possibility that Iran will be a threat for the next decade. So unless that component is there in finally getting rid of the threat in that region, I don't see how he can sign any deal.
Yeah. One of the great things about having a show at 9 a.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Eastern is I get a lot of reaction from sources from one show to the next, and I don't have to wait long to unfurl my next bat of reporting. Last night on Two-Way Tonight, I reported that there'd been a bit of a false dichotomy set up in the minds of many people, including people in the financial world, that either Trump's about to fold and make a deal, or Trump's determined to go to war. And the answer is both. If there's a deal on the table that he thinks is good, he'll take it. But the reaction I got from some sources who watched me last night was, take seriously that this whole thing may just be an attempt to give the Iranians a few more chances to take a deal. And if they don't, the war is going to escalate. People who think, it's winding down, it's going to escalate. And as I keep telling people, past his prologue with Trump, almost always, he does not move Pentagon assets, including human beings, to a war zone and doesn't use them historically. So, Larry, how open are you to the notion that if these peace talks don't yield a capitulation from the Iranians, we're going to see card taken. We're going to see bombing that's more extensive than we've seen. We're going to see an attempt to destabilize the regime that goes beyond what's occurred so far.
I think that's a very real possibility. And I think at this point, it's sort of a 50-50 consideration as to whether this is going to end up with a peaceful resolution or whether there's going to be a significant, I should say, escalation in military force. And one thing that I keep hearing from people who are either currently engaged with this Department of War or in the military, or people who are recently out of the military who have very good sources, is that a big part of the backdrop here is a demonstration of force, a demonstration to our critical enemies, most specifically China. A whole lot of what's been going on in Venezuela and in Iran, yes, is to obtain the objective that is at hand at that moment. But in the background, the subtext is to demonstrate to China exactly what we're able to do and what we're capable of doing. And my understanding is there's a little bit more that we would like to demonstrate before all is said and done.
Well said. Melissa.
Yeah, I think that if we're not able to get the peace talks done right now, I think that we have no other choice but to escalate, because what we're doing right now, treading water, isn't working. And all it's continuing to do is further embolden the other side and cause economic issues worldwide, as well as security risks. So I don't think he has an option other than to escalate if these peace talks don't resolve sooner than later.
I'll tell you the other thing, folks, that may happen sooner than that is in the air is the strait may be open. The strait may be open through some combination of Iranian accommodation and a coalition having finally been built, and U.S. degradation of the Iranian ability to control the strait from the coast and from the water. So don't be surprised if in the next 4 days, 5 days, maybe not, but don't be surprised if in the next 5 days there's an announcement of a plan to open the strait that maybe the Iranians agree to. Don't be surprised. All right, quick word from a sponsor, and then we'll go back to talking about the economy. Cozy Earth will give you 20% off everything on the site. Why? Because they really like you, and because you're a member of this community. Go to cozyearth.com, use the promo code MORNING, and get 20% off everything on the site. Comfort that carries you from the morning with the bedding and the sheets to nighttime, towels, and during your day with your socks, your pants, your shirts, everything. Everything on the site now, 20% off. cozyearth.com, again, promo code MORNING. And the bubble cuddle blanket comes, I get asked all the time, well, I've become addicted to my bubble cuddle blanket. It's too big to travel with, and truly it is. but there is a mini version. I don't know exactly what they call it, but there is a smaller version. So buy yourself the mini and the full size and have it with you on the road. Right now, discover how care in every detail transforms simple routines into moments of true comfort and ease. Head to cozyearth.com, use the promo code MORNING for 20% off. Say in the post-purchase survey you heard about Cozy Earth here on the morning meeting. Recession. Neil Ferguson. You guys know Neil Ferguson?
Not personally.
No.
He's a friend of mine, I'm proud to say, and man, that guy's smart. And what Neil does is what's called applied history. Neil looks at what's happened in the past and tries to learn lessons from the past about what's going to happen. And Neil looked at past energy shocks, and they don't always lead to recession, but they almost always do. Neil now writes for the Free Press. Brace yourselves, a recession is coming. No hedging. A recession is coming. The war in Iraq is choking global energy supply. History shows shocks like this rarely end without a recession. So just to be clear, as everyone in journalism knows, Neil didn't write that headline.
Right.
And he might say, the subhead says rarely, and of course the headline says it's definitive, but the piece is quite compelling and suggests there's going to be a recession. Here's someone else worried about the economy. Here's somebody, Melissa, Larry Fink, you know him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, here's Larry Fink on the BBC talking about his worries about a recession. Number 108, please.
If there's a cessation of war, and yet Iran remains a threat to trade, a threat to the Straits of Hormuz, then I would argue that we could have years of, above $100, closer to $150 oil.
What happens to the global economy if that happens? How do we see it?
We'll have global recession.
There's all sorts of articles every day in the, Bloomberg and Journal and all these places about how the disruption in the oil market, even if the war ended now, you've got disruptions in supply, you've got disruptions in distribution. And of course, Scott Bessent before the war assured us that there'd be the second quarter and third quarter would just be boom, economic boom, and we'll never know what would have happened without the war. Melissa, with the war, what are the prospects of strong economy rather than stagflation in Q2 and Q3?
No, this is going to be stagflation. And I mean, even before the war, you saw the elements that were present with the introduction of AI. You're seeing contracting and hiring. And now with the war, you're seeing the trickle-down effects of inflation. And now we can't move on interest rates. And it's a perfect storm. And so I think we're absolutely going to have stagnation for the foreseeable future. And I worry about what it could do in the longer range. I'm not 100% sold on the recession because of the war. As you said, if the war ends in a couple of weeks, I think that that's a pretty big statement to make. But I think because of all the other factors plus the war, we're headed for a rough road.
Larry, if you don't agree, what are the strongest indications that we might not be in for rough economic times?
Well, I don't agree with the term inevitable. And also, by the way, are we using the traditional definition of recession or the new modified version that we adopted during the Biden administration when we were experiencing a recession?
I just say a bad economy. How about that?
Yeah. All right. I think that I agree with pretty much everything that's been said in terms of if the war ends, by mid-May, for all intents and purposes, or the end of April for all intents and purposes, then I think that second quarter, third quarter boom that Bessent and the whole team has been hoping for and predicting will, in fact, come to fruition. The big wild card is what Melissa just put her finger on. I don't think the employment situation and how it's affected by AI has really been properly quantified, and I don't think they are in a position to be able to predict that because it's such a moving target right now, and it's changing almost literally on a weekly to monthly basis. That will have a huge effect, and I don't think they have a plan right now for it.
I have to tell you, I have clients who have thousands of employees worldwide who on calls with the CEO are saying things like, I want to cut the workforce in half by the end of the year because of what AI can do. And you layer that into the fact that right now you're already seeing the length of time that people are unemployed for has gone from 2 months to 3 months to 4 months. I think now it's on average something like 5.5 months. And so you're seeing that happen in real time. And I just think that we're in this, it's a perfect storm moment.
Let's say, just play this out with me. Let's say my spidey sense in reporting is correct, and there's a massive attack on Iran, more massive than we've seen already, and an effort to create regime change. And let's just say that it leads to a stability in the region this year, like quickly somebody takes charge and they promise elections, and let's say the U.S. gets access to the oil. Again, I'm not predicting these things. I'm not saying they're super likely, but I don't think they're impossible. Would that lead to an economic boom if that all happened in the next,
Well,
8 weeks?
I mean, the pivot point of Ferguson's article there in the Free Press is that the war is causing this huge chokehold on oil.
Yeah.
So I would think that based on your hypothesis there, it would reverse that, and
Yeah.
that could be an explosion, frankly, in
Yeah.
the economy if it were to happen.
Yeah. Melissa?
I think it would be a big help, but I think that that's only one piece of the larger economic puzzle.
Right. Okay. Palm Beach last night had an election for a state legislative seat, a special election. Ron DeSantis had appointed the incumbent to some judicial clerk job, and the Democrat won. Washington Post 109. And this is, of course, continues the extraordinary success of Democrats in the midterms, in the off-year elections, rather, and in the special elections we've had since Donald Trump took office. The Washington Post headline: Democrat scores upset win in Trump's backyard for Florida State House seat. The Democratic victory is a coup for the party, which has struggled for years in Florida as the state moved to the right since Trump's first win in 2016. Latest in a string of overperformance by Democrats in elections since the start of Trump's second term. Here's the Politico headline, number 115. Mar-a-Lago flip, Trump wins, Dems win Trump's hometown Florida House district. I think Trump won the seat by, what did he win it by, like
It was
12 points or
7.
something?
I was saying 7 or 8. I thought it
Yeah.
was.
And then here's the Fox News headline. Same story. Again, this is making headlines around the world, as they say. Ballot box upset. Democrat flip Florida legislative seat in Trump's stomping ground. It's not just that Trump's from there. He carried it by nearly 10 points, according to Fox News. So again, the midterms are different. They're different amount of money being spent, different dynamics. But Melissa, if you were staffing Ken Martin, the DNC chair today, what would you tell him the true meaning of this is?
You never want to count your chickens, right? And there's a long time between now and November, and there's a lot of dynamics within the Democratic Party where we could steal defeat from the jaws of victory. That said, all of the arrows are pointing in the direction of we could get 25 plus seats in the House. And while the Senate math is hard, it is very much in play. And I don't know how you continue to ignore all of these signs if you're the Republicans. And I have friends in the Republican Party who still say, we're going to be fine. It's going to be better than everybody thinks. And because of redistricting and because of this and because of that, and wait and see. And to your point, what Besson says, the economy is going to bounce back in Q2, Q3. I think they're living in la la land. And I think with every passing day of what's going on at war, in the airports, with the economy, I just don't see any other outcome than a huge landslide for Democrats in the fall.
Larry, before you jump in, Melissa, I have to ask you what I ask all people who tell me Democrats have a good chance to win back the Senate. Name the four
No,
seats.
I know.
Just
The
name
math
them.
is hard.
Name
if
them.
you could win, if we could win that Palm Beach seat by that margin, Texas is in play. Like I do believe Maine, depending on what happens in the primary, is in play. Like you have.
Okay, so you're for our Maine, North Carolina, Ohio, and Texas?
And maybe Texas. And I acknowledge that this is a rough road to hoe. I'm not saying it's a slam dunk, but I'm saying they're going to have to spend money in places they shouldn't have to.
Yeah. Larry, what's the alternative case to what Melissa laid out? And honestly, most of my Republican sources working on congressional races say the environment's actually worse than the public polling suggests.
Yeah, listen, I've always said that a lot of the hysteria over Republicans' chances in the midterm stem from, party preference polls which take the temperature of the entire nation, Republican versus Democrat, which still are surprisingly rather narrow right now. I think Democrats have a 2-point edge. You'd rather be on the upside of it, but really, that's not how this election is going to take place. There's going to be how many districts do you think are in play? Really, realistically, 25 districts? You think
40 if it's a wave, 40.
Okay. So
I would say in play like 35. Realistically in play.
So let's say 35 are in play. Well, obviously, whoever the candidates are, we haven't even finished the primaries in a lot of those districts.
That is the caveat, and I agree with you.
Matter.
The candidates matter.
Final redistricting still isn't done. All of those caveats. All right, let's throw it out there. That's how you have to focus on what it's going to look like. That said, bad day yesterday, bad headlines yesterday. Yeah. The momentum is on the Democrats' side. And here's where I think this is most critical for Republicans in midterms right now, and I think this is what they're most concerned about. Right now, the one advantage that seems insurmountable is their money advantage. I think they've got something like 5-1 right now.
Who's money advantage?
Republicans have the money advantage right now. And the fundraising has been really, really soft for Democrats. The fact that Melissa can come on here and credibly say, hey, this means we have a chance in the Senate. I don't believe that. Mark, I don't think you believe that. But they can now make the case that Melissa just made to their fundraisers when they get into the small smoke-filled room and ask for big money to come in.
Right.
That money wasn't going to come in. Now it might. And that might be a major problem for Republicans.
We've got 3 more topics to get to. I need to tell you that Caroline Leavitt just announced a 1 o'clock White House briefing. So that makes it maybe less likely we'll see the president. But Caroline will get a lot of questions. And of course, there's still all sorts of speculation and focus on whether there'll be a meeting to negotiate a peace deal tomorrow in Islamabad. That's where the focus continues to remain, is tomorrow in Islamabad. But there could be something else. I don't know whether to just do a phone call, but whatever. And in terms of the money, Larry's absolutely right. But let's see how Democrats do once the primaries are over, and these House candidates can be featured in online fundraising, and they can say, I'm one of X, people who can win this. Give me a lot of money. Let's see how they do.
I'll tell you, and I know you want to move on, Mark, but it's just worth noting.
Yeah.
Democrats in New York believe that the Stefanik seat could be in play.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. I mean, the only Democrat that's won that seat in the last 30 years was an older white veteran who was basically a Republican, but with a D next to his name. And the idea that now the Stefanik seat could potentially be in play just shows you what kind of trouble people are in. Or even if they're not really, the perception and therefore the fact that Republicans are going to have to spend money on defense.
Are you thinking of running for that seat?
I'm making that announcement here today, Mark. I am running.
What's your campaign slogan?
I'm not running for Congress.
Okay. There are 2 topics we could talk about. There are 2 topics we could talk about for an hour. They're all a bunch of Washington gobbledygook, but there are real issues here. One is this continued stalemate over DHS funding, and Republicans thinking that they could cut a dirty deal with themselves and get Democrats to agree to fund stuff only to allow Republicans go on and do something Democrats don't want in reconciliation by themselves. And then there's also this question of reconciliation, where I really do think the Republican Party has lost its mind if they think the solutions to, they need a housing bill, they need Pentagon funding, they need a dirty solution on DHS, they need something on healthcare. I mean, there continue to be all these different ideas. Here's the headline from Politico: GOP's reconciliation hopes are easier dreamt than done. And the biggest fantasy of all the fantasies that are wrapped up in, reconciliation will save us, is the notion that you can, in reconciliation, pass the Save America Act. You cannot put things in. There are 2 things about reconciliation, folks. You cannot put things in that are not germane to the budget, and you have to offset spending with cuts or savings, whatever you want to call them. You're not going to find $200 billion in savings to pass a Pentagon funding bill. And as the Honorable Mike Lee, the gentleman from Utah, would agree with me, you cannot do voting reform in a budget bill. Here is the aforementioned Honorable Mike Lee. 111, please.
There are a lot of things that can be passed through a Senate procedure known as budget reconciliation, through which we can pass things with a simple majority vote. The Save America Act isn't one of those things. It can't pass through budget reconciliation because it's a policy. it is not budgetary. And even if you attached money to it, there are things at the margins we could do to help facilitate compliance with it. But the restrictions themselves have basically zero chance of meeting the standard to pass through budget reconciliation. So look, regardless, there are other reasons out there to do budget reconciliation. Do not be fooled into thinking that we can set down the SAVE Act, the Save America Act, and just pick it up on budget reconciliation. That's not going to work. Thanks.
You're welcome. Larry, I always say if I'm reincarnated and I come back, I want to come back as LeBron James or the Senate parliamentarian, the two most powerful people. Larry, if almost everyone I know who's got any sense says a Save America Act is not going to pass, and almost everyone I know says you can't do it in reconciliation, and also almost everyone I know says the worst outcome for Republicans on the SAVE Act would be for it not to pass, and instead of the blame being put on the Democrats, the base blames the Republicans. Why is the Republican Party getting the hopes up of the base that they can pass this in reconciliation when they cannot?
Well, part of the base's frustration leading up to this moment has been that it looked like Republicans weren't even trying. And at the very least, for a week, they've tried. And they put a pretty good show on about it, by the way. And I think
Larry, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I thought you were the party that didn't give medals for participation.
I was going to say, you guys got
that is a very fair
trophies now.
That is a very fair point. But when it comes to politics, sometimes you at least have to show that you tried. Just ask Chuck Schumer. They've tried quite a bit as well, and they haven't accomplished much. But it works for them, right? Chuck Schumer shut down the government for.
I don't know. Chuck Schumer, I don't know if you've read the Wall Street Journal over the weekend. I don't know how well Chuck Schumer's strategy is working for him these days.
Well, I mean, they're still in it to win it, I suppose, and they're looking at. Let me just. You're right to lay it out the way that you did, and Senator Lee is making some smart points there, and he should be applauded for being the single voice champion behind the Save America Act. He single-handedly brought it to the point where it is right now. Part of why he's saying this can't go through reconciliation is because he wants the fight to continue the way it's going right now. I've heard from members who believe that if they attach funding for election integrity efforts and election security and expanding polling places in the states, that funding can then have terms and conditions applied to it that would have many of the provisions of the Save America Act embedded into it. That's their thought process as to how they try to do it. Yeah. Many people are skeptical of that. And as you know, Mark, the parliamentarian can say, nope, this doesn't pass muster. And John Thune can do a Bob Dole, another great American hero, and just say, thank you for your advice. We're going to go ahead and
not going to happen. Not going to happen.
Melissa, I'm just saying that's the thought process.
But the more you talk about that, the more the base is going to be annoyed and disappointed and blame Republicans when he doesn't do it. He's not going to do it. He's not going to do it. Melissa, I don't understand this. The Republicans spent 3 days this week trying to make a deal with the president to end the DHS shutdown. And then they made a deal with the president and they forgot, oh, wait, the Democrats have to agree to this too. And the Democrats aren't in the least bit interested in this deal. So how does, I've never understood how this ended. And normally in shutdowns, I could write the thing on a napkin. How does this end?
No, but I'll tell you, my friends on the Hill, very senior up, really are feeling quite emboldened right now.
Yes, on the Democrats, yes.
Yeah, they feel like the Republicans are wearing this. They feel like the Republicans have completely botched it. And they're just keeping their mouths shut and letting the Republicans continue to screw it up. So they have a list of things that they want. They want to know that if there's a use of force, that there is going to be local jurisdiction to be able to investigate and hold people accountable. They want the warrants, and they're not moving right now, and they don't feel like they have to. So to your point, I mean, I feel like deadlines exist for a reason. With recess coming up, I had hoped, and there was a hope, that by Friday they would hammer something out. But to your point, Republicans are just negotiating against themselves now. So I don't know.
Larry, do you know how this could possibly end?
Well, it looks like it's moving toward this whole little sort of bizarre little carve out for ICE, and then they get the funding through. But why?
But the Democrats won't. The Democrats won't vote for that.
Aren't going to do that.
Democrats aren't doing it.
I think that
they just said no.
They're not, I understand, but they're not going to give them what they want on ICE. That cannot happen. It will not happen. So the only way you can get past this impasse is for them to do it, and Democrats claim that they didn't do what they just said they weren't going to do. How else do you think it's going to happen?
I don't know.
I don't understand.
I've given up, but I've known from the beginning on this one. This one's intractable because, as Melissa said, the Democrats are 100% sure they're winning. And they're doing this for the 2 people who were killed in Minnesota, and they're fine with it not being
no
solved.
doubt. And that's why I am frustrated with Republicans, why they aren't at the airports in front of the TSA lines handing out bottles of water with ICE agents, saying this is all Democrats' fault. I'm frustrated with Republicans that they're not in Chicago hugging the mother of that 18-year-old that was just killed by an illegal alien that Governor Pritzker took a week to say anything about it. You're right. They are doing it for Renee Good, but they're not doing anything for the Americans that have been killed by 100%. Illegal immigrants. And why Republicans don't say that like I'm saying it right now is driving me insane.
100%.
Well, and Larry, even worse than that, you saw the video footage out of California of that woman being detained, and I know that there's a discrepancy around the details on it, but it almost doesn't matter. It's just more video of ICE agents.
Well, it doesn't matter because it's being used deceitfully. I mean, I'm sorry.
Sure,
that's why it doesn't.
Politics ain't beanbag, my friend, and this is where we are. So to your point, the Republicans can't message their way out of a paper bag right now. So the Democrats are so emboldened that they honestly think they can get them to capitulate because they feel like Republicans are so desperate now for a deal.
Yeah, so, correct. Raise your hand if you want in on the conversation. A couple things. First, the other day I ate pancakes and chugged a 2-liter Diet Coke on camera, and some of you didn't like that. Ladies and gentlemen, the program's about verisimilitude. Whatever I do on camera will be real. I was really hungry for some pancakes, and I got to wash them down with 2 liters of Diet Coke. So apologies for those who were offended, but no, really not. Number 2, media bias. Until people in my profession do a true introspective look at the coverage of Joe Biden's mental decline and the failure to cover it, it's very hard to have credibility with the American people. It's also going now on 5 decades or so, very hard to have credibility if you won't acknowledge liberal media bias. And there are people in my business who have been in jobs like virtually identical to me, who've covered politics, which is where most of the bias shows up, for decades, who continue to deny there's liberal media bias. It's incredible. You have all these people who are reporters covering things like the White House, who then become columnists for the same news organizations that they were White House reporters for. And lo and behold, every one of them becomes a liberal columnist, every one of them. Okay, so here's the latest example, and it's so funny I almost can't even say it. This is Chris Cillizza. One of you tell everybody who Chris Cillizza is, Melissa.
He was at CNN a few years ago, and then he was let go, and now he has a Substack.
Yeah, he was at the Washington Post for many years. He wrote the Fix column, and he would say, along with his friend Chuck Todd, who he has on his show regularly now, there's no liberal media bias. It's all a hoax. It's not true. It's just a bunch of carping from Republicans, and they trot it out to try to score political points. And Chris Cillizza, this is still his position. So Scott MacFarlane, longtime CBS News Capitol Hill reporter, was laid off. Here's the headline, Chris Cillizza. What Scott MacFarlane's move really means. The guy quits. And like Terry Moran and Jim Sciutto and Don Lemon and a couple others I'm not thinking of.
You mean Jim Acosta. Sciutto's still at CNN.
Sorry, Acosta, thank you. They leave like, I thought of him because he was a Biden administration official or Obama administration.
And Obama State Department.
They leave so-called fair organizations, and all of a sudden they become, radical liberal reporters. Scott MacFarlane went to Midas Touch, very successful, far left-wing anti-Trump organization, and he says he's going there just to cover the news.
Do real journalism. Yeah.
Do real journalism and to not allow there to be lies, whatever. Anyway, so what Chris Cillizza says is, this doesn't prove there's liberal media bias. This is a new model. This is an objective reporter who's going to go to a place. It's like, if you're not familiar with it, it's like Huffington Post. It's far left wing. Going to go there and he's going to do.
It's worse than Huffington Post because it's literally owned by a political operation. It's a political operation.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yes. Yeah. But this guy's just going to go there and do straight news and be indifferent to whether Donald Trump or Kamala Harris is president, to be indifferent to whether the Democrats or the Republicans win the fight over the DHS funding. He's going to go there and just be purely an objective reporter, but he's going to do it within a far left-wing political operation that produces content. And Chris Cillizza says, the White House will scream and yell about this, but it doesn't prove there's liberal media bias.
That's correct.
Larry,
yes.
thoughts on this latest example of the shameless attempt to ruin the credibility of my business?
It's an undeniable trend, isn't it? That I can only think of one journalist who has left a major network and gone out independent and was conservative. That's Sage Steele, an ESPN reporter. Okay, I can't think
but
of
that's
anybody.
not politics.
It's not news and politics. Well, sports has become politics, sadly.
Yeah.
But there's undeniable trend that they all end up going there. My friend and mentor, Andrew Breitbart, referred to this as the Democrat media complex. That there is this palpable handshake. And you mentioned Jim Sciutto. The real insidious thing is it goes in the other direction as well, as so many people leave the government and then get a job as journalists too. The only person I can think of that ever did it that way was Tony Snow when he became the White House spokesperson after being a journalist at the Fox News Channel. But he was an opinion journalist. He was a columnist.
Correct.
He was not a straight reporter.
Like Ruth Marcus and Dana Milbank covered the White House for the Washington Post.
Yeah.
They were news reporters for the Washington Post. Then they both became columnists, and they're both left wing. Imagine that.
They're all left wing, Mark.
Melissa,
Melissa, but at least they're telling us who they are. I appreciate that.
Yeah, Melissa, if Chris Cillizza were joining us right now, and I hope he calls in, what would you ask him? What would you ask Chris Cillizza about his column?
How he could write that. I mean, with a straight face. It's the whole, listen, I think at this point it's well established the liberal media bias, right? That's the trust in the media has never been lower since they have been polling it, on record.
And there are other reasons for it too, but
there are other reasons for it too. But look, aren't we all used to it at this point? I live in New York City. Every single day I see it in the coverage of Zohran Mamdani and how they treat him and his wife versus if Melania Trump, and I'm not a fan of the Trump, if Melania Trump did half the things that Zohran Mamdani's wife did, it would be front page news in the New York Times on a daily basis. And MSNBC would be screaming about it from the rooftops. And I'm not saying that's right, wrong, or indifferent, but you have to treat everybody the same way. And the media doesn't, which is why nobody trusts the media, which is why it's great that you have this platform that brings together divergent views for honest conversation.
Thank you. But do you know that every time you say MSNBC, you have to put $40,000 in the...
Sorry, MS Now.
Okay.
I haven't subscribed to the new brand.
I wrote about this I wrote a book last year about the media. It's called Shameless Liars, which I think is apt since you just used the term, Mark, I think, or at least shameless there. And I talk about how when I worked for Andrew Breitbart, and we were who we were. We told everybody who we were.
Yeah,
everyone knew
that's
what our
fine.
perspective was. That doesn't mean you can lie. It just means we're going to tell you the news through our perspective. And we respect you, the viewers, enough to take that into account and then make your own determinations. And when I worked for him, my job was to curate videos and put them up at Breitbart TV, and everyone would go crazy because they showed bias and other things. And I was doing a whole lot of Keith Olbermann, Rachel Maddow, Al Sharpton, and MSNBC stuff. And he called me, yelling at me, saying, "This is lazy. That's the easy stuff. They're not the problem. The problem is Anderson Cooper. The problem is Jake Tapper. The problem is George Stephanopoulos, who is now a senior respected. I mean, I know he used to work for him, but he's an operative. He's a Democrat. We know that, but they pretend otherwise. And that's the insidious thing that is destroying journalism, or at least remaking journalism into something like this, Mark, something that we're doing.
Did you say I used to work for George Stephanopoulos?
No, with. Did I didn't mean to say for.
How dare you, Larry?
I'll just say, Chuck Todd worked at NBC, and Chris Cillizza worked at the Washington Post and CNN, and they are two longtime proponents of saying there's no liberal media bias. It's all sour grapes from Republicans. Yeah. When I saw this Chris Cillizza headline, because this McFarland thing is so outrageous. It's so outrageous, because Larry's right. It's not Huffington Post. This was the guy who asked Republicans on Capitol Hill to trust him as being a fair-minded reporter. And less than a fortnight after he leaves CBS, he goes to work for a left-wing place. And even if Chris Cillizza is right that he's not going to be left-wing, the symbolism of it is just, it's just so hard. It's just so hard for me to see. When I saw the headline, I thought, finally, after decades of denying the bias, Cillizza's going to, this example is so
Right.
blistering, he's finally going to admit it. And instead, he does calisthenics and cartwheels and pretzel logic to say no. Even this doesn't prove that liberal media.
And Mark, and I'm sorry for me, I just, not to belabor the point, but it's not because Midas Touch is liberal. It goes beyond that. The ownership of Midas Touch, it is literally a political action committee. It is a political operation. It's not a journalistic endeavor. And by the way, we've got one of those on our side. The Washington Free Beacon was started as a political operation. It has turned into a pretty good journalistic endeavor, but it is what it is. And they say, But you're not seeing, Katie Couric leave her job at NBC and come and work at Washington Free Beacon. That's just not going to happen.
All right, quick word from a sponsor, and then to your questions. Please raise your hand if you'd like to get in on the conversation. And if you'd like to save some money, get some free money, download the Upside app. The Upside app works when you buy things at restaurants, buy things at supermarkets or gas stations, you get cash back. You use your credit card like you normally would. You get all the points you already get from your credit card and just get additional cash back. The app will show you when you download it and open it up. It'll show you places around you, restaurants to take it, supermarkets and gas stations, and save money by getting free money back. And when you first download the app, save 25 cents per gallon of gas on your first fill up using the promo code MARK. So right now, grab your phone, download the Upside app, and go to it. They give out over $1 million a week. And again, folks, there's no gimmick. The app is free. Using the app is free. You don't have to cash in points. You just get cash back. Go right now to your phone and download the Upside app. Over the course of the Upside app, they've given away $1 billion. Get some for yourself. Download the Upside app. Use the promo code MARK on your first fill up and enjoy the extra money. Maybe buy me some Diet Coke with the money you save thanks to me. All right, here we go. Bob, welcome in. Thank you for being here. Tell folks who don't know where you are and what's on your mind for Larry and for Melissa.
Hey, good morning, y'all. Thanks for having me on. Remember to root for the Illini tomorrow night in a pretty big basketball game.
What's the point spread, Bob?
I haven't got around to looking for that yet, Mark, but let me tell you why, because I was busy digesting and watching a clip of you at Hillsdale College that somebody on here recommended the other day and put in the chat. And that's really the reason I came on. It has its roots in some of what you were just talking about with media bias, but rather than try to take up time and rephrase your words, I'm going to put a link to it here in the chat. And I just wanted to compliment you. I thought that was an excellent talk you gave at Hillsdale with some great audience response. And my hat is off to you, sir.
Thank you, Bob. I appreciate it. Did you watch the whole event?
I did.
All right. Well, thank you.
I watched an hour. I guess it was an hour-long talk on YouTube.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Bob. If you want to watch it, it's in the chat, and it talks about liberal media bias. Also talks about the vision for two-way. So if you're interested in learning more about sort of how we
found that fascinating,
how we see two-way of revolutionizing not just political media but all media, I urge you to watch it. You can get the link in the chat, and if you're not here in the chat, just go to Google or YouTube search Halpern Hillsdale, and it'll come up. And they were great hosts, and I love being there. And Larry has been there as well. It's a great, incredible place.
Great
Bob,
place.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Very
I'll
great
study
place.
that for my panel on the media tomorrow.
Maybe just ask. Sometimes you're on a panel and they ask, "Do you have any AV stuff?" Just say, "Well, I brought a clip," and just play a clip from that. Melissa, you haven't watched my speech.
Do you think that when your face is on the big screen at CPAC, what kind of reaction do you think you would get, Mark?
Who's that? Probably a lot of who's that.
Oh no,
Ellen's here. Ellen, welcome in.
Oh, how are you guys? Thank you so much.
Tell everybody where you are and what's on your mind for Melissa and for Larry.
I am in Scottsdale, Arizona, and I wanted to go back to Iran. You've talked about how during war, governments, always lie about things. What do you think are the most concerning things that our administration is either lying about or very severely misleading the country about, the world?
What is the Trump administration?
Yeah, like what are the most concerning things do you all think they might be lying about?
Great question, Melissa.
I don't know that it's lying per se. And I wouldn't want to presume to accuse them of lying when I don't know it for sure. But I think that the messaging around it has been a total disaster. And I still don't really understand why we went in, when we went in, and what our ultimate goal was. And I think that continues to be incredibly problematic.
Yeah.
Larry, do you see anything you'd say they're lying about that troubles you?
Well, I don't see. I will modify the premise of your question. I don't see that they're lying about anything. They may be, but I don't see anything that's glaring. But to sort of entertain the notion, I guess the thing that would be most disconcerting if they were lying was the overstating the success that we're having. But I've tried to cross-check it with people, and it does appear that militarily we are experiencing great success. Or if they're understating the casualties to our troops. Those would be the two greatest things I think that I would be concerned about. There's no indication they are at this time.
I mean, again, same caveats as my colleagues. I will say, I don't think if you're going to go to war without hearings in Congress with the co-equal branch, if you're going to go to war without an authorization, to be this loosey-goosey about why you went to war, I think it's maybe not a lie, but it's certainly not the full truth. Because honestly, there's no one on here who can tell you really why. No one on here can tell you why. What's the specific
That's one of my
reason?
biggest concerns.
You know,
I mean, I think I know why, but yeah,
well,
I mean,
the Israelis, the nuclear.
October 7th. Yeah, October 7th.
Well, but they haven't
Hamas
said
was funded by Iran, and
But they haven't.
I mean,
But they never said that. They didn't
right,
say
exactly.
it.
That's my assumption.
Oh,
Right.
So
Larry thinks it's the nuclear weapons.
well,
Rubio said it was Israel was going to attack.
First of all, we have 47 years of history to know exactly why Iran is a threat to.
Oh my God, Larry, you're
us
making me interrupt you.
and to our neighbors.
but that's been the case every day for 47 years, and we didn't.
And there's so many other countries that are also a threat.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, Larry. Sorry. Go ahead.
So again, is the question why or why now? Right?
No. What was the justification for attacking another country and killing their leaders?
Oh, well, that's a different question.
Well, that's a question that I don't think they've answered.
The legal justification or the just war justification. I think
Larry, if you were president and I was White House Chief of Staff, you're President Bartlett and I'm what's his name?
I'll be
CJ Craig, and you said I'm going to bomb Fredonia.
I'll be CJ Craig.
No,
okay,
I'm the president in Independence Day.
Okay, I'm going to be that president. I'm going to bomb. You say I'm going to bomb Fredonia and kill its leaders. And I say, you need to tell the American people why you're doing that.
Yeah, and the answer.
I'd like you to give one reason backed with a bunch of charts.
Yeah, well, I think that the reason that we've heard, and I think that it's a legitimate reason, is first of all, it's premised by the foundation that we've had 47 years of outrageous threats from this country, unlike any other threat we've had on the planet, and they have the blood of Americans on their hands going over those years, number one. And then number two, we attempted to continue the negotiations over their nuclear program. It had reached a standstill, and I think the president has said, and the negotiators have said, that they entered those negotiations by saying, we have every right to enrich uranium and create a weapon, and we're going to continue to do it the second we have the opportunity. They weren't going anywhere. We had a very slim window of opportunity to actually have an effective military strike once and for all that could in fact end this regime, and so we took that opportunity. It was a bold move, but we had the right opportunity, and we've had years of futility with these people, and they will not be a threat to our neighbors anymore.
Ellen, do you have an answer to your own question or no?
No, I think about the Vietnam War and of course it's Monday night quarterbacking, but how years later we come to find out that so many presidents felt that it was an unwinnable war, and then they turned around and sent in more troops. And so it just makes me start thinking like, okay, what are we being told now that, that they know is not accurate, but they are wanting to escalate for one reason or another, money, oil, whatever.
Ellen, instead of Vietnam, let me ask you a different question, because everything I just said, and by the way, the one thing that is unverifiable is what happened in those negotiations and what Iran said. We just have to take their word for it. But everything else, I think, is what the administration has said in terms of the background for this military strike. Now, how does that compare to the presentation Colin Powell gave to the United Nations Security Council?
That's right.
Showing weapons of mass destruction that are backed that.
Right.
That was what I was going to say. I mean, I feel like I almost feel like the information void is, they're not lying because they're not telling us it's concrete. Whereas
Yeah.
back under Bush, exactly as Larry just said, and they did that presentation, and it turned out, that they were lying.
Right.
Well, and I think that's the point I'm making. It's like, oh, you should have done what Bush did and Colin Powell did with the big presentation.
Or
and
no,
the chart
there's
and
a
the photo.
middle, Larry, right? You don't have to lie. You can
Yeah.
present a case to the American public and
just
tell
go
the
with the
truth.
Yeah.
Right.
Ellen, thank you. Grateful to you. Nicole, if you can be brief, come on in. Got to be brief, though. We're up against the clock here.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. I
Hey.
am curious about JD Vance's role maybe in continuing negotiations. I'm curious on why you guys think they're requesting him, why he hasn't been in the limelight, and now it seems like he might be coming in as the finisher if this negotiation actually pans out.
Yeah, great question, Larry.
I think it's a bit of a troll. I think that they're believing the rumors that JD Vance is at odds with this and he wasn't in favor of it, and that they don't really want JD Vance at the table as much as they want the headline out there that they want JD Vance, because it undermines and shows some light about some supposed divisions within the administration. That was my immediate take on it. I could be wrong, Mark.
Yeah, Melissa, thoughts?
No, I agree with Larry. I think that's right.
Yeah, it also elevates the conversation, right, to higher above. Although obviously Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner have the full trust of the president. It obviously elevates things to.
And it's
include the vice
insulting, by
president.
the way, to the president. It's a way to insult the president because Jared Kushner is his son-in-law.
Yeah.
And Mark, this is a great opportunity. And Nicole, you look fabulous, by the way. Whatever the look you're going for on the. Are you starting a podcast? Do you want to be part of?
Yeah, I do. I do have one today. We're
Oh, I
talking
see.
about
Right.
the fiscal issue in our country. So this is my red
It's a
alert,
striking look.
panic.
But Mark,
Excellent.
somebody from the community asked me 2 weeks ago if I thought if JD Vance were president, if he would have given the green light on this. And at the time I said, I think he eventually probably would. And you said never. I'm starting to come over to your side of it. I think that Vice President Vance's reluctance to use our military and things like this is very much, there is a very real conversation going on behind closed doors. Thank God it is behind closed doors.
Yeah.
But I think maybe I spoke too quickly when I said that eventually Vice President Vance would. That said, you never when you're sitting in that chair and you have to make those decisions, you
100%.
never know what you're going to do.
Totally. And I'll just say, I think the way I would use language is, however justified this was a war choice. It just was. Didn't have to do it. Might have thought it was the right thing to do, but didn't have to do it. Nicole, thank you. Grateful to you. I'm going to leave you in the capable hands of Melissa and Larry as I head over to SiriusXM for my Wednesday SiriusXM doubleheader, which means roll into the second hour of the morning meeting. And then 11 o'clock, I'm on with Michael Smerconish. And I haven't really been emphasizing this enough. I was on with Michael for literally years, every Wednesday at 10 Eastern time. And because of the second hour of the morning meeting, I'm now on at 11. So some of you have been sending me emails this week saying, so sad you're no longer on with Michael. Well, I am. It just moved to the 11 East hour every Wednesday. So I'll see you on SiriusXM first on the Megyn Kelly channel, 10 to 11, and then over on POTUS with Michael at 11. Larry, thank you. I look forward to hearing all about CPAC. Sorry I'm not there. And Melissa, next year we're all going. So you may want to start thinking about what you're going to wear to that, because CPAC fashion is a thing.
It's a thing.
I'll see everybody in just a little bit over at SiriusXM. Larry, Melissa, thank you both.
I will have you. Today's a light day at CPAC. We'll have a full report on tomorrow. Will be a busy day, as will Friday. Melissa, do you have anything that you'd like to plug at this time about your upcoming adventures? You already have denied running for office, but nobody believes you.
I'm absolutely never running for Congress. No, but I will be on
the
top
Senate is
later
in
today
play.
at 6:40 with Brett Baer talking about the day's
There you
news.
There you go. Special report. That's the revolving door from Two-Way and Fox News Channel that has become so prevalent. So that's fantastic, Melissa. We'll look for you then. I'll be live at noon on my streaming show every day that I do at noon at Town Hall. So make sure you check that out. Later today, Citizen McCain will be live. Miranda is welcoming former Chief of Staff and Advisor to the Biden press office, Yemisi Egbawali. Did I do that right? Because, it took me about a year to get Hans von Spakovsky right. And I think I got it right. So Yemisi will be on with Miranda for the Meghan McCain show, and also a host of fraudsters and the Foreign Report, Sina Ghaznavi. Crying out loud, you guys. And why are you pushing me like this? So that's today at noon. And then 2A tonight, live at 5 p.m. Eastern, where Mark will welcome some amazing guests. They're so amazing, I can't even tell you who they are. Moynihan Report is live at 7 p.m. And then the morning meeting will be back tomorrow with myself, yours truly, here from Dallas, and the effervescent Kevin Walling. And that will pretty much do it for us today on this edition of the morning meeting. Thank you so much. And for those of you who are watching on YouTube or X or other platforms, reach out, go to twoway.tv, sign up for the Zoom link so you can be part of the community. You can chime in. You can tell me that I'm full of it. You can tell Melissa that she's brilliant. And even better, you get to see everybody's puppy dog bubble cuddle AI videos that they have created as their avatars. They are incredible. And you can watch Mike Colby on his treadmill during our entire show, making me feel like a fat slob. All that and more by joining the 2A community. Melissa, it's always a pleasure to talk with you. Thank you for joining us today.
Always a pleasure, Larry. Enjoy CPAC.
We're not going to lose the Elisa Stefanik seat.
I don't think so either, but anything could happen.
We'll be back tomorrow. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.